anthropologist Michael Harner has demonstrated evidence-based success, and so he's still around. A half a century of anthropologic fieldwork, cross-cultural studies, experiential, experimental research, first-hand training, hands-on healing work. He has described universal methods of indigenous healers worldwide. His classic text, The Way of the Shaman, first published in 1980, remains the foremost resource and reference on shamanism in the world. He has impeccable academic credentials, PhD in anthropology from UC Berkeley in 1963. He taught at Berkeley, Columbia, Yale, and venues around the world. He was the chair of the Department of Anthropology at the New School in New York City. 20 years ago, he got his Medicare card and left academia to devote himself full-time to fieldwork and the practice of shamanism. His work is preserving vital principles and practices we cannot allow ourselves to forget or ignore. So I want to present this award to a wisdom keeper, an elder, an explorer, a scholar, a humorist, and most importantly, a true and powerful healer and a real pioneer in the heart, science, and soul of healing, Michael Harner.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to set this down over on the table. You can get it.
Now, when I went back to the United States, I started looking to find out how plants had caused all religious experiences. Gordon Wasson was doing the same, other people were doing the same thing. Finally, I gave up because 9/10 of the shamans in the world did not use consciousness-changing plants for their work. Some places, and in Siberia, they may use a mushroom or something to get the experience, but the mushroom power was so strong it would take over them, and they could not really normally function as shamans. Even those shamans tend to use the drum when they were doing the work. So I found sonic driving, as we call it nowadays. It sounds somewhat scientific. Sonic driving was the thing used by 9/10 of the world's shamans. But not only that, I discovered that with our experimentation that a beat at about 4 to 7 hertz, in other words, in the theta range of EEG waves, was what really worked to change the consciousness if it was done repetitiously. And I then got, this is before glasnost, I found a missing tape, a very hard to find tape of a Siberian shaman working, and he was using the same tempo. And so I rediscovered, I really should say, the power of repetitious drumming in shamanism. This example is a good example of how the trial and error of the shamans through time arrived at the right kind of beat for changing consciousness without ever having any knowledge or need for a scientific theory about why it worked. I think very often science catches up later after the shamans in some things. So my students, our students, Sandra's, Susan McCulkey there, our executive director, our students use sonic driving to change consciousness. Now, the consciousness changing is an important part of shamanism because if you just keep your consciousness as it ordinarily is, why, you could even just be a congressman in the United States. The shaman has to see what other people don't. Otherwise, the shaman doesn't have a job. And it not only has to be something other people don't see, but the shaman has to be successful in diagnosis and treatment. Otherwise, people will go elsewhere. And a lot of shamans start off and they fail. And some become famous. And it depends upon certain factors of a spiritual and a disciplinary nature. So when they don't succeed, they lose their practice. Now, sometimes it's even more extreme than that. In In some cultures, although the shamans may receive a big gift after healing, if the patient dies, they have to return it. Now, we have many innovations to offer to the American Medical Association, but I don't think that one will be greeted with enthusiasm. Now, one of the criteria in shamanism is performing miracles. Oh yeah, I know what I was talking about. I was saying that this has always been part of a holistic approach. In the indigenous culture, the shaman would do the work, but most everybody knew what plants to use, their pharmaceuticals, who would do bone setting, who would do massage. And even when missionaries came in, the shamans would often send the patient to the missionary to get aspirin or antibiotics. The whole idea in shamanism was to get the patient well, not prove that you had this system that works. So it was always been that way. Now, shamans also, people ask me, who's a shaman? And there are various criteria, but one thing I ask, does the person perform miracles? And if they do, then you're on. We're trying, through the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, to preserve the disappearing indigenous knowledge and to keep shamanism alive while that knowledge still exists. And one of our various programs in this direction is the Living Treasures of Shamanism program. Recently, we appointed the 2 last Tibetan shamans as living treasures, just very recently, and gave them lifetime stipends, the trustees of our board, to whom I'm very thankful. And there are others in other parts of the world. This knowledge is disappearing. Our whole planet is in peril, including knowledge which would help raise our consciousness about our relationship to all of nature, to the plants, to the animals. You know, Darwin made shamanism available in the West. He was the first one who said we're all related to plants and animals. The shamans had been saying it before, were burned at the stake centuries before. Darwin said it was all right to be related to the animals again. Shamans have known in their hearts that we are all one. What is the most important lesson that we can learn from indigenous healing, such as shamanism today? What is there in that wisdom? Well, it's always hard to summarize that. But I could offer that there are untapped potentials that were developed all over the world in indigenous cultures that can help us in the 21st century. And those potentials should not be lost. To study them, to help save them and bring back this wisdom for future generations, that is my mission. I'm very lucky to have that mission. And it's the mission of my co-workers, the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. It's a great honor to know that we're all in the same boat. We are here in terms of trying to do something. I've purposely given you a short talk for fear that if I went on much longer, you might need a healing, and I just don't have the resources for that tonight. But again, if you wish to know more, I'd be glad to talk to you after the program. Now again, finally, and to the relief of all, on behalf of all of us with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, I again wish to express my appreciation for this award and to wish you all the best with your health and your lives. Thank you.